Yo, what's going down, Green Screen Entertainment fans? Your homie Jay Greene back right now with my review for Evil Dead Rise. Now, this movie is the 5th installment in the Evil Dead franchise, and I say 5th installment because when it comes to these films, it's sometimes hard to quantify what is actually a sequel or a reboot. Now, the first Evil Dead film came out way back in 1981, and the second one came out in 1987, both of which extremely similar and you could say follow the same plot and premise. The third installment, Army of Darkness, that came out in 1992, follows Bruce Campbell's character Ash as he's a store clerk who's transported back to 1300 AD, where he has to fight an undead army in order to get back to his present time. And in 2013, Fede Alvarez gave us Evil Dead, which you could call it a reboot or a sequel. It could really go either way. And now we have this, Evil Dead Rise, which you could once again debate whether it is a direct sequel or a reboot in the fact that it is trying to expand the world of Evil Dead just a little bit, and it is in a brand new location. And to be completely honest, which is the only way I know how to be, this installment didn't completely work for your homie. And in order to break down why that is, I'm going to speak to this film specifically, but I'm also going to touch on some of those original films in order to help make my point.
Let's start the show.
This movie opens up on that lake scene that you've seen in the trailer. Old girl coming up out of that water, floating towards the dock like it's Easter and she's the second coming. It's a dope shot, true, but literally no context whatsoever, and that scene is never revisited throughout the entire film. What was it for? We're then introduced to some of the key players that we see in the trailer: Beth, Ellie, Cassie, Danny, and Bridget. Now, there is a little bit of mention to make us aware of their living situation towards the beginning of the film and the mom's relationship status. But there's nothing about the characters that we've just been introduced to or the neighbors on their same floor in this apartment building that we're gonna meet soon enough that would actually develop them enough to make you care about what's about to jump off with them throughout this entire film. And for me, it really just felt like that they were there either just to be killed or possessed at some time or another when the script called for it. That lack of character development didn't really work for me. Now, I'm going to compare that to the films that came before. Looking back at those characters that mattered most to the story, they were fleshed out a lot better. And looking back at those films, if there was time spent between those characters chopping it up, it actually added more to those characters' stories and their arcs throughout the entire film. In this film, unfortunately, it seemed like those conversations between the characters weren't very engaging and seemed like they drug on for way too long, making it feel like forever before this Evil Dead film decided to Evil Dead. Going into this one, I'd heard that it was going to be super gory and way over the top, which is exactly what I want from an Evil Dead film. But for some reason, it actually felt reserved for like the first 2 acts. Now, it's not the end of the world if you don't show me all of the nasty, but at the same time, this franchise is based on its overall creativity, its creative kills, blood, guts, the gore, and it's just being over the top in general. And again, because it was kind of reserved for the better portion of the film in that regard, it made it feel like this Evil Dead movie was taking forever to Evil Dead. Now, Sam Raimi, the original writer and director of The Evil Dead, has a unique style of filmmaking. So when you're watching a Sam Raimi project, you can feel his swag throughout the entire film, and it's very entertaining. And Fede Alvarez, the writer and director of the 2013 Evil Dead, is also an amazing filmmaker. And his stories are engaging and unsettling, but because he has such a great eye behind the lens, while you're watching his films and his stories unfold, while they are getting under your skin, you can't take your eye off the screen because it's so beautifully shot. I say that to say that these two filmmakers added something special to the original installments of the Evil Dead franchise, whereas this film feels like it was kind of shot for streaming. No disrespect to streaming, but if we're keeping it real with each other, we know what it was like back in the day. When you saw a movie that was coming out in theaters, you knew there was going to be something special about that film. Even if it wasn't that good, it was something that brought it a little bit higher tier. Whereas there was those movies that went straight to DVD or nowadays straight to streaming, you know there's still a lesser quality to that film. That's at least innately or inherently what we would think. And that's what this movie feels like. Overall, this franchise has been a nice combination of camp yet believably serious at times. When I say believably serious, I mean that you can have a character going from doing something silly or funny in one moment, but in the next moment, they're doing something serious and deadly, let's say, but you buy into it because of the writing, the directing, or that actor's abilities. In this film, I just didn't buy into a lot of what most of the characters were saying or doing based on the situations that they were put in. Now, I'll say this without really giving any spoilers away. Like I said at the top of the review, there's that scene that you see old girl coming up out of the water, dope shot, but no context whatsoever. It's never revisited. In the end of the film, there is a little bit of a callback, if you will, to that scene, right? But I promise you this, it just doesn't fit. So when I'm seeing that scene at the top of the movie wondering, okay, are we ever gonna see that again? How's it gonna come back around? When eventually that opportunity to address that scene comes back around, it doesn't fit, it doesn't make sense, and it almost feels shoehorned in at the top and at the bottom of the film to bookend it, if you will. And given the fact that I'm not really buying into most of these characters, there's not any real new ground being covered, I don't feel that they added much to the lore and the mythology of the Book of the Dead, if you will, and you don't always have to do that. Sometimes doing that will diminish the mysteriousness of the property, right? But I feel that when you're putting all these pieces, kind of throwing them in a blender and then giving it to us like this, I feel like you did this franchise a disservice, and because of that, it just didn't work for me. But again, this movie does have some cool moments, and it does have some legitimate potential that if this movie does well enough and it can get a sequel, maybe they can revisit some of those things, really flesh them out a lot better, and make the next installment a little bit better than this one, or one of those situations where you watch the next installment that fleshes things out better, and you have more respect for the one that came before it. We'll see. I was really hoping that this movie would be awesome. I wanted to love it, but at the very least, like it a lot. But the fact that this movie had weak character development, it wasn't really creepy, there wasn't a whole lot of tension, it wasn't scary, being an Evil Dead film, it missed me with that. In my opinion, I think this is one that you can probably wait for on streaming, and I would probably suggest, instead of going to see this in the theater right now, go check out those original Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi Evil Dead films. They're very campy, super dated. You might not feel them because of that, but they are very creative and fun and entertaining. But if you want something a bit more modern that is creepy, that is nasty, that is filled with tension, and is beautiful to look at, then you want that 2013 Fede Alvarez, because this man knows what the hell he's doing. Now, with all that out the way, are you planning on seeing this one? Do you got your tickets? Have you seen it already? If you've seen it, let me know what you think in the comments below. Let's chop it up. Your homie, Jay Greene, I'm out.